Conflict management is the process of limiting the negative aspects of conflict while increasing the positive aspects of conflict. The aim of conflict management is to enhance learning and group outcomes, including effectiveness or performance in organizational setting. Properly managed conflict can improve group outcomes. While no single definition of conflict exists, most definitions involve the following factors. There are at least two independent groups, the groups perceive some incompatibility between themselves, and the groups interact with each other in some way. There are several causes of conflict. Conflict may occur when a party is required to engage in an activity that is incongruent with his or her needs or interests. A party holds behavioral preferences, the satisfaction of which is incompatible with another person's implementation of his or her preferences. A party wants a mutually desirable resource that is in short supply, such that the wants of all parties involved may not be satisfied fully. A party possesses attitudes, values, skills, and goals that are salient in directing his or her behavior, but are perceived to be exclusive of the attitudes, values, skills, and goals held by the others. Two parties have partially exclusive behavioral preference regarding their joint actions. And lastly, two parties are interdependent in the performance of functions or activities. In the 1970s, Kenneth Thomas and Ralph Kilman identified 5 main styles of dealing with conflict that vary in their degrees of cooperativeness and assertiveness. They argued that people typically have a preferred conflict resolution style. However, they also noted that different styles were most useful in different situations. They developed the Thomas-Kilman Conflict Mode Instrument, otherwise known as the TKI, which helps you to identify which style you tend towards when conflict arises. The 5 styles that they identified are competitive, collaborative, compromising, accommodating, and avoiding. People who tend towards a competitive style take a firm stand and know what they want. They usually operate from a position of power, drawn from things like position, rank, expertise, or persuasive ability. This style can be useful when there is an emergency and a decision needs to be made fast, when the decision is unpopular, or when defending against someone who is trying to exploit the situation selfishly. However, it can leave people feeling bruised, unsatisfied, and resentful when used in less urgent situations. People tend towards a collaborative style to meet the needs of all people involved. These people can be highly assertive, but unlike the competitor, they cooperate effectively and acknowledge that everyone is important. This style is useful when you need to bring together a variety of viewpoints to get the best solution, when there have been previous conflicts in the group, or when the situation is too important for a simple trade-off. People who prefer a compromising style try to find a solution that will at least partially satisfy everyone. Everyone is expected to give up something, and the compromiser, him or herself, also expects to relinquish something. Compromise is useful when the cost of conflict is higher than the cost of losing ground, when equal strength opponents are at a standstill, and when there is a deadline looming. The accommodating style indicates a willingness to meet the needs of others at the expense of the person's own needs. The accommodator often knows when to give in to others, but can be persuaded to surrender a position even when it is not warranted. This person is not assertive, but is highly cooperative. Accommodation is appropriate when the issues matter more to the other party, when peace is more valuable than winning, or when you want to be in a position to collect on this favor you gave. However, people may not return favors, and overall this approach is unlikely to give the best outcomes. And alas, people tending towards the avoiding style seek to evade the conflict entirely. This style is typified by delegating controversial decisions, accepting default decisions, and not wanting to hurt anyone's feelings. It can be appropriate when victory is impossible, when the controversy is trivial, or when someone else is in a better position to solve the problem. However, in many situations, this is a weak and ineffective approach to take. Once you understand the different styles, you can use them to think about the most appropriate approach for the situations you're in. You can also think about your own instinctive approach and learn how you need to change this if necessary. Ideally, you can adopt an approach that meets the situation, resolves the problem, respects people's legitimate interests, and mends damaged working relationships. To manage conflict effectively, you must be a skilled communicator. That includes creating an open communication environment in your department by encouraging employees to talk about work issues. Listening to employee concerns will foster an open environment. Make sure you really understand what employees are saying by asking them questions and focusing on their perception to the problem. Whether you have 2 employees or who are fighting for the desk next to the window, or one employee who wants the heat on and another who doesn't, your immediate response to conflict situations is essential. Here are some tips you can use when faced with employees who can't resolve their own conflicts. Acknowledge that a difficult situation exists. Honesty and clear communication play an important role in the resolution process. Acquaint yourself with what's happening and be open about the problem. Let individuals express their feelings. Some feelings of anger and or hurt usually accompany conflict situations. Before any kind of problem solving can take place, these emotions should be expressed and acknowledged. Define the problem. What is the stated problem? What is the negative impact on the work or relationship? Are differing personality styles part of the problem? Meet with employees separately at first and question them about the situation. Determine the underlying need. The goal of conflict resolution is not to decide which person is right or wrong. The goal is to reach a solution that everyone can live with. Looking first for needs rather than solutions is a powerful tool for generating win-win options. To discover needs, you must try to find out why people want the solutions they initially proposed. Once you understand the advantages their solutions have for them, you have discovered their needs. However, finding common areas of agreement is no matter small. You need to agree on the problem, agree on the procedure to follow, agree on worst fears, and agree on small change to give and experience a success. Then you need to find solutions to satisfy needs. Problem solve by generating multiple alternatives. Determine which actions will be taken. Make sure involved parties buy into the actions. Be sure you get real agreement from everyone. Determine follow-up you will take to monitor actions. You may want to schedule a follow-up meeting in about 2 weeks to determine how the parties are doing. And lastly, determine what you'll do if the conflict goes unresolved. If the conflict is causing a disruption in the department and it remains unresolved, you may need to explore other avenues. When you meet with someone who is angry, you can use the tools of effective listening to help diffuse this anger. Nevertheless, when anger is directed at you, it is usually much more difficult to respond definitively because your own emotions are usually involved. To be effectively diffusing anger, keep in mind the needs of the angry speaker. To vent, an angry person needs to let off steam and release the anger they may have been brewing for a long time. Use your communication skills to allow the person to do this. To get the listener's attention, an angry person wants to know that you're paying attention. Use your body language to demonstrate this. To be heard, an angry person wants someone to listen to his or her point of view. Acknowledge the feelings you hear so that the speaker knows you appreciate how angry he or she is. To be understood. An angry person wants someone to appreciate how he or she feels. Try to emphasize with his or her experience so that he or she feels you understand the situation. And acknowledge his or her right to feel the way he or she does. When you're listening to an angry person, keep in mind the following. Be attentive and patient. Keep in mind that he or she will become less angry as you let him or her express him or herself. Be sincere. Empathize and validation must be both honest and genuine. And lastly, remain calm. Try to remove your own emotions from the discussion. Remember that an angry person may say inflammatory things in the heat of the moment, but you do not need to have to react angrily.